Hello, this is Melina Davis, and I'm your host today for the Joy Med podcast. And I'm so happy to say that today on Joy Med, we're joined by Dr. Todd Otten, a board-certified family physician, healthcare leader, and unapologetic challenger of the status quo. With more than 2 decades of experience caring for patients and leading teams, Todd has lived the realities of modern medicine, including the personal toll of burnout and system dysfunction. He's the co-founder of Our Quadruple Aim, a movement centered on improving the patient experience, quality of care, cost, and clinician well-being. He's also the co-author of Ripple of Change, a powerful and honest reflection on burnout and the path forward for healthcare. Through his work with Medicine Forward and his advocacy for restoring trust and humanity in medicine, Todd reminds us that real change starts with courage, connection, and the willingness to speak the truth. Welcome, Todd.
Well, thanks, Melina. Every time I'm on one of these, I hear the intro and I'm like, oh my gosh, who are they talking about? Is it me?
Who is that? Yeah. Well, I'll just share with all the readers that you or listeners that you and I actually know each other quite well. And I have just really been so happy to know you and get to know you in this space around wellness and well-being. It's been at least over a year and a half or more, right?
Yeah, at least a year and a half, maybe even closer to 2 at this point. Time tends to fly, and I was going to echo those sentiments too. It's our developing friendship is a treasure to me. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Me too. I've learned a lot from you, and I really, my heart feels better spending time with you. So I know that listeners today are going to have the same experience with you. I've got a bunch of questions, so I want to dive in. For listeners who may be meeting you for the first time, I wanted to ask, how do you usually introduce yourself, and not just professionally, but who you are at your core?
Oh, yeah. Rarely actually do I say I'm Dr. Otten outside of professional settings or seeing patients. Usually, I say I'm Todd and just kind of see where the conversation goes. But I think ultimately, I'm a human being just like everybody else. You know, medicine was my calling and I love it. And I'm realizing in Career 2.0, being an advocate and a challenger of the status quo is kind of where I've landed to a large degree. And I loved the unapologetic component to it because I was joking earlier. I feel like, we need to be vocal. We need to be
Yes.
loud and we need to be talking and sharing stories and celebrating wins and pointing out the things that aren't working. So that maybe that's a little bit of how I tick, I suppose.
I like it. When I met you the first time, I was just struck by you were already an advocate for other people, but you were living that through your own experience. And it really brought me closer to you right away because you just do approach it as a human being. And so many people I find don't think of their doctors as people, not because they're not standing in front of them, but because they are there to talk to them about them, and it can be very different.
Well, I think you're right, and I think there's at times I think it's important to have that, that structure and that difference in terms of roles. But the reality is, at least in my experience, when you can relate on a human level with somebody, you can really get to the core of the issues, whether that's in patient care, or whether that's in trying to make changes, or what have you. And so, honestly, I've always defaulted to telling patients, hey, this is a team game, right? Like I'm the
Yeah.
physician, but I'm not at home with you. I'm not forcing a pill down your throat or doing whatever you need to do to get better, helping you lose weight. And that's just landed so well with people that I've kind of carried it on to my role, my different role that I have now in terms of speaking up and trying to stand up for our colleagues who need it. They need someone who's vocal.
Yeah. Well, I want to explore it first so people get to know you. What brought you to medicine, and what was it that you loved the most about medicine early in your career, and what did you expect it to be like across your life?
Oh, that probably can be answered in so many different ways depending on the day. I think the first part of it, I always talk about the joy of medicine. Like, there's a euphoria of caring for other human beings that at times is almost a little bit difficult to describe unless you've had the pleasure of experiencing it. It's so gratifying. I mean, it's this dopamine hit that you get of helping somebody. It's just incredible. If that were the only part of medicine, delivering medicine and healthcare right now, it would be easy. I can't tell you, like, the good days just float by, and before you know it, it's the end of the day, and everything's done. But unfortunately, as my career has evolved, I've experienced the challenges personally, professionally, through my colleagues as a leader. At one point when I was seeing patients full time in a fee for service capacity, I mean, there were days where I bet more than 50% of what was being talked about was just frustrations from patients.
Right.
And I'm
Yes,
like,
I
holy
hear that.
smokes, we need to get back to your diabetes here a little bit, because I only have so much time, right? So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. It can be frustrating no matter who you are in the healthcare system. Just being in it is wearing.
for sure.
Yeah.
Navigating things, the cost, financial toxicity, you know, the list goes on and on and on for sure.
It's so broken. When did you realize in your experience that medicine wasn't just hard, but frankly unsustainable?
I think there were inklings throughout my career, but at the time, maybe you're not as receptive to it because you're just trying to navigate things and get through the day. It was really probably 2019 when I experienced the kind of the full spectrum of burnout that I realized how much was broken. Um, but even then, it wasn't until I fast forwarded a couple years of healing and looking back on those moments that all the little pieces that were contributing to my experience of burnout, the charting, the volumes, the RVUs, leadership issues, the list goes on and on and on. I think that's really when it smacked me in the face, like, oh my goodness, this isn't what I signed up for at all.
Well, it's a systematic maze of misery versus a personal failure, effectively, right?
Yeah, and I was like many of us. I was taught, be more resilient, do more, work harder, push on, stuff it into a box, compartmentalize, and all those things that I learned in medical school. Which those tools are important, right? Like if you're trying to save somebody's life and do CPR, whatever the case may be, you need to be in the moment. But
Yeah. Yeah.
we also need that time to process and heal from those traumatic things. Um, but I honestly I wasn't taught that, and frankly I paid the price for it in many ways.
Yeah. You know, when did you realize that it wasn't personal, it was systematic? Help me understand that.
Oh man, it was not when I was going through it. I think
Right.
I was understanding a little bit. It was after some time of reflection, probably a good year or two, looking back on that year or two of misery that had been building from a personal perspective,
Mm,
and going, oh my gosh, like, a lot of this wasn't me. This was leadership failures or volume failures or profits over people failures. And the list goes on and on and on. I think actually when it really hit me the most was probably when I started writing the book Ripple of Change. And I was kind of having a rough go at the time, and I wrote a poem, and it was kind of it's kind of a dark look at the underpinnings of primary care. And when I was going through that, I was like, holy smokes, this all played a role in my window of burnout for sure. I think that's when it really hit me.
well, ripple of change is so personal. It's deeply personal. What finally pushed you to want to share your story? Most doctors I know are told not to share, almost hold it in, bottle it up.
I realized that wasn't working so well. Just stuffing everything into a box. And so the book started really as catharsis for myself, to be honest with you. That poem was first called Medicine is a Roll of Gray. And then I wrote a chapter called Anatomy of Burnout. And that was really a kind of a personal introspective look, I suppose, at how my struggles impacted those concentric circles of people around me. And as I started to dig into it, I was like, holy smokes, like as much as I was frustrated and suffering, like my family, my friends, my coworkers, least of which patients were all being negatively impacted by the experience I was having. And then the evolution of the book changed when my co-author got involved. Obviously, it became sort of not just my journey through burnout, but his journey through the healthcare maze or mess or whatever you want to call it, and then our combined catharsis as a result of the project.
Well, what's so interesting and unique is your co-author is a former patient. What a radical decision. What led to that moment and why was that so important?
You know, there was some build up to that where I had started really pushing back on healthcare administration and some of the decisions that were being made. And there were a few reasons that gave me the courage to do that. I think having gone through burnout and not wanting to go back, some personal things that were in my favor helped me to be a little bit more vocal for sure. Getting him involved was at first an opportunity to try and help him heal. He
Ah,
was suffering with cervical radiculopathy, which is written about in the book, so there's no HIPAA violations here. But we were struggling. Like we had tried all kinds of things, injections, physical therapy, different medications, and he was getting depressed as a result.
mm,
And I mean, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. I was running out of ideas for him.
yeah.
And I distinctly remember telling him like two points to this point. One, I said, Joshua, I believe you have to get better, but you have to believe it too. That was huge. And so then this project came up and I told him about it and I thought, well, maybe he would be interested. Maybe he wants to write. Maybe they would help with his healing. And then we had a meeting that lasted like 3 hours, and that's when the whole thing went on to like a different
Wow.
plane of ideas and investment and collaboration for sure.
Well, what a good moment for you too to have a partner in it, to be there with somebody talking and exploring it. I bet that had to be fairly empowering and liberating.
100%. And I think our shared vulnerability in the project is often missing right now. And I
Hmm.
think it's incredibly important that when people are struggling, which goes back to a lot of the work that you're doing, when you're struggling, you feel vulnerable, that you feel safe to look for help, right? I mean, that's so critically
Hmm.
important.
Yeah, yeah. It is so important. And medicine, I mean, really, it's hard to be honest about you as a human, not about the patient and the system or others, but about sharing yourself and that vulnerability. I bet that was just a difficult transom to cross, but an important one for you.
Yeah, I think there's fear in doing something like this. There's fear of failure, there's fear of what people are going to think of you. But I also felt sort of like I was kind of being guided through the process, honestly, and that I was in a unique position to stand up for not only myself, which was part of this, but also for my colleagues. And that became more and more important to me throughout the writing of the book. And it's even more important now, um, you know,
Yes.
as we're working on a documentary and
You
all these
you
other
have a
things.
new project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just one wasn't enough, Melina. I just got to keep going and keep going, right?
Well, I think when I met you at first, I'm pretty sure you and I met in New York. Isn't that right? We met in New York, or did somebody introduce us after New York? I can't recall.
I think I actually know the linchpin to this, or
Yeah,
the crux
help
behind
me.
it, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think I was there. I flew into New York for like a grand total of like 20 hours to be
Yeah.
on Matthew Zachary's podcast and be at the Burnout
Yes.
Symposium. Met him, Gabe was there, and then I think you came in and everyone's like, the two of you need to connect.
Yes,
Um,
yes, because I spoke at that conference and then people were like, you two need to talk to each other. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Thank
then so then
goodness.
And then we had, we overlapped for a project that unfortunately didn't come to fruition. However, the lessons learned in that, that failed audio documentary were totally leveraged to what's going on now, and I think has allowed us to take Suck It Up Buttercup to just a different level, or I hope a different level. At least it seems like it's lining up that way
Oh, it
anyways.
is a whole nother level and so many people behind you. But talk about it for a second. What is Suck It Up Buttercup and where are you right now with the project?
Sure. So kind of the 30,000 foot view of the documentary. So it's a feature length documentary that ultimately is intended to pull the curtain back for the American public how greed has or is destroying our healthcare delivery system. But it isn't just physicians, it's nurses, it's patients, it's former executives, hospital administrators, a few celebrities are mixed in there. And we feel like we have taken all these voices and put it in a package that the average American can relate to. And so there's some humor in there. There's some graphic novel, comic book sort of stuff in there, which is a comic book kid. I love that stuff.
I love it. Yeah.
So yeah, we're nearing completion, and the exclusive screening, if you will, is March 19th of this year. So right around the
In
corner.
Baltimore,
Yes, ma'am.
Mid-Atlantic, I'm very excited to see what people think of this. Why do you think a visual documentary is the right medium to tell the story instead of another book or audio only or even an academic paper? What is it about this film that you think is going to be so powerful?
I think it's an opportunity for the average American who is frustrated with healthcare to get a broad stroke or picture or depiction of the reality of what's going on behind the scenes. I'm not sure you can accomplish that in a short clip or a paper, or I mean, you can. I mean, obviously you can accomplish it in those mediums, but to get it to the eyeballs that aren't used to seeing it, I think it requires a little bit different thinking and a little bit different delivery mechanism, and that's what we're hoping to do with this project. But I think, the other part of it is the calls to action around it. Like, oh, you can relate this, Melina. So we get what's the call to action? What's the ROI? What are
Yes.
all these other things? And you
Yes.
know how my
So
brain
what?
is. Yeah, my
I
brain
know.
is like way down the road thinking about all these other things. And so the calls to action are really evergreen. Unlearning learned helplessness. Like your voice, your actions, your words matter. What you do matters.
Hmm.
Even if
Yeah,
it's asking one colleague if they're okay, that matters, right?
it
Big time.
matters.
Big
It
time. But
matters.
then
Yeah.
also accelerating an impact network is the other part of this, that idea that we're all doing amazing things and the answers are out there, but maybe the right people haven't connected and haven't talked yet. And this hopefully
Yes.
allows for that.
Well, that's one of the things I've watched. Our organization is invested in the film, and we have really noticed. Well, we were kind of early to the game, but what we've seen through the film is how many people you've brought from around the country to be part of the conversation, to be part of bringing it to life, be part of guiding introductions, and it's almost formed this network and this community as you've developed the film, which frankly we think was really needed. It's normalizing the conversation in a way that is important, but connecting people, accelerating those connections, as you say. I've been really fascinated to watch how you've created community here.
Melina, thank you. And it's interesting. I agree with you. So the behind the scenes of this project, there's like over 100 positive change agents. Obviously, you're included in that, but also we're up to like I don't even know how many organizations are on board with this at this point. It's
Yeah,
north of 60 at least,
yeah,
and some of them are big organizations, and there's some
big.
other very big organizations that we think are going to come on board. And I've thought about this, like all these other little connections and projects that have developed out of this project. It's kind
Yes,
of incredible and speaks to the power of an impact network, like that ability to talk and collaborate and just work towards common goals together. And ideally, we can do this at scale and then get
Right.
really far
Right.
upstream is what I would
Right.
love to see.
Right. And I find that all the people that you've brought to the project and around the project, like there's a little bit of magic happening in different corners of this country around this. And that you and I started today by saying hello before we started recording, just by saying, "Oh, have you connected with those people?" Because you need to see what they're doing. That magic that's hidden somewhere, we need to find a way to accelerate, but also sort of scale. To your point, even if our small little organizations individually can't do it, somehow that even the idea being carried forward somewhere else in the country is huge, I think.
I totally agree with you. I think the longer I've been in on this journey of networking and being vocal and advocacy, there are so many just amazing human beings out there in this
Yeah.
country that are
Yeah.
wanting to do positive things. And to piggyback on that, there's a lot of patients who are looking for an avenue or an outlet of ways they can get involved. And ultimately, that's what I really want to see is those millions of patients that are looking for some direction to then have some direction in some capacity or other.
Yeah.
I think that's where this will get incredibly disruptive in a positive way.
That's really fun, which is what Matthew Zachary's been wanting to do since
Oh,
you
yes,
introduced
yes.
us. Yeah. That's where his main mind is as a patient. What are some of your favorite stories that you've heard or the ones that have stuck with you through this filming process?
Wow, there are so many. You interview all these amazing people, and is it the story when we were interviewing Mark Cuban of him letting his guard down a little bit and starting to drop F-bombs about the current state of healthcare and some of the ways forward? The power in the story like Betsy Gall's about her husband. The power of and I'm not gonna play spoiler here completely. One of the nurses who was
Yes.
assaulted you
Ah,
know,
yeah.
while she was triaging in the ER. I think one of my favorite maybe personal stories that I'll tell a little bit of was me geeking out at one of the interviews. So we had the pleasure of interviewing Don Berwick at his house, and you know, he's a hero to me. He's been
Yeah.
talking about this
Yeah.
stuff for 30 years. And so
Yeah.
we're going through the interview and he's just everything and more. And, at the end I said, Don, with little of what you know about this project, if you had to come up with a title right here and right now, what would you call this film? And he said, Solidarity. And I was like immediately transported to like, I joke, nerd heaven.
Yeah.
I was so excited I had him sign my laptop because I had forgotten to bring something for him to sign. He got
I
the
love
biggest
that.
grin on his face. It was that
Oh.
was probably my favorite.
Oh, that's really a fun moment. That's really fun. I love, when you hear a title like Suck It Up, Buttercup, it's very provocative, a title, but there's also some really important, empowering conversations that have happened around this, not just sort of drink it in and feel the burden of this with me. Help change it, right?
Totally. Well, and we, as an internal team, that title was offered by the three core creatives right from the beginning: Scott Pressler, Amy Schaub, and John Monner. And that came as a result of a conversation with the healthcare executive about, that clinicians should just suck it up, Buttercup. And we went round and round and round about different titles and ultimately kept coming back to that title. And honestly, it even took me a little while to sort of say, you know what, that is the right title. But I think it speaks to what not only clinicians are going through, but also what patients are going through.
Patience. Yes.
I mean, we're
Yes.
all being told to suck it up, Buttercup,
Deal
frankly,
with
in the name
this.
of profit.
Right. Right. Deal with it. It is what it is. Right. Is not an okay answer. We can do better.
Yeah, here, I
I
got
love
my
that.
dumpster fire right here.
Right. You're so funny. I love it. What do you hope that clinicians will feel after watching the film?
A lot of things. Perhaps most importantly, that they're not alone. I think many are suffering in silence
Yep.
and not sure where to turn for help. We want people to feel empowered. Um, we want them to, frankly, unlearn that learned helplessness that has been woven into the fabric of our healthcare delivery system.
Hmm.
So those are just a few things that I hope to see on a, an individual basis.
Those are huge. And when network and impact network, that's one of the most important antidotes to people being isolated and feeling like they have to be quiet. I love that. That's really important.
Well, I mean, connection mitigates trauma, right? And
Trauma.
trauma's everywhere right now.
Yeah.
There's layers and layers and layers of it depending on what your lens is or where you're at, and we need to be together and work together to unwind this stuff. So, so yeah,
And
that's why
believe
that.
that it's possible. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
in our
totally.
country, it is possible to build it better. It is possible. Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, goodness gracious, we spend how many trillions of dollars on healthcare delivery?
Right.
So it's not that the dollars aren't there. It's, are they being allocated in the right places? Are they being utilized correctly? Are we delivering the best care that we can? And unfortunately, in many cases, probably not so much.
Hmm.
And then you get into things with, equity and all these other things that go along with the quintuple aim.
Yes.
So much opportunity, but many people see this as such a complex, wicked problem that they feel like their voice doesn't matter.
It's
And when,
overwhelming. Yeah.
yeah, and when the majority feel that way, it allows the status quo to continue. We want people to
Right.
move
Yes.
beyond that and say even the littlest of effort, when you start to consolidate that, and put those lights together, all of a sudden that becomes very powerful.
That's
Um,
right. That's
yeah.
right. We spend our days dismantling how it works brick by brick and trying to put it back together. And the more people that are part of doing that and are part of that community, you'll see it add up. I mean, we just have to know it's possible and not be overwhelmed. Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
What do you hope non clinicians, people who aren't in the business of healthcare, what do you think that they hope they finally understand about the issues and them in the system?
Again, lots of potential answers to this question. I think as a physician, a lot of times we're, kind of the forward-facing component of the healthcare delivery system, and a lot of frustrations, or nurses or other types of clinicians are getting the brunt of people's frustration and anger, even in the form of violence at times,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that in and of itself has to change. But I
Yeah.
think the more we can educate the average American who is enduring some of these things with our healthcare delivery system so they can truly appreciate where the problems lie is part of this. Then ideally, once they hopefully understand a little better, we want to activate them so they can get involved with the clinicians, with the physicians, with the leaders, with, the work that you're doing, Melina, to join us to
Yeah.
making the
Yeah.
change. Because frankly, if you go around the country, the vast majority of people are frustrated in some capacity or another if they've had to deal with the U.S. healthcare delivery system. We need those voices that we need to scale this. We need to scale the
Right.
efforts, is really
Right.
what I want to say.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting. I find inside healthcare feels like everybody is charged with arguing with one another and at one another. When I think your message, I think, is so important is that it's come together. Like together, we actually have the strength to fix it and to question it and say no more to the things that are broken and inhumane, frankly.
I agree with you. And I'm not going to get into specifics because I really don't want to alienate groups when I talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
But I joke that occasionally there'll be two organizations who are literally trying to do the exact same thing, whose
Yes.
whose comma in their mission statement is in the wrong spot, so they
Yep.
can't figure out how to work together. And that,
Right.
that those silos are weaponized against us to
Yeah.
facilitating change. We
Yep.
have to get over that.
I agree.
We have to learn to agree, to disagree on certain things, and move forward for the greater good is really what needs to be happening.
Yeah, I find in our work that frankly, when we sit down with the people we oppose often, we agree on 85% of things.
Yeah.
So I'm like, can we just concentrate on those? I mean, that's a lot of ground to cover. Let's just set the 15% aside. Let's just head into what we can work on together. Uh, it's like going through butter when you do that. It's an interesting phenomenon. Yeah.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, and people are always like, well, what's the solution? And I'm like, I don't have one solution to this
There's
problem.
not one. Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a $5 trillion problem right now.
Yeah.
How about we
Yeah.
focus on something we do agree on and go with that? And then you get some little wins and you get traction, and
That's
then
right.
people get on board, right? And
Yeah.
then it becomes easier to fight bigger battles.
No doubt. No doubt. There is a method. Well, when you look forward to the future of medicine, what gives you hope?
Some days, maybe not so much. Um,
Uh,
people,
yeah.
people give
Yeah.
me hope.
Because there
There
are a
are
lot. Yeah.
there are so many good people out there who are ready and willing and wanting. Um, the work you're doing, the work the Learn to Bring Heroes Foundation is doing, um, Dr. Glaucomflecken and his comedy, that all counts,
Yeah.
right?
It's fun.
And,
Yeah.
and, and I'm naming a handful of people that are in the doc, but, like a friend of mine, Tina Shaw, she's running for Congress in New Jersey. She's a rock
Yeah.
star. And
Yeah.
if she wins that seat, that's a win, right?
Yeah.
To have a
Yeah.
physician in that position wanting to make change. So that's kind of a long-winded way to say that people give me hope.
I
Um,
love that too. When you look forward 5, 10 years in this movement that we're part of, what do you think success could look like?
I often go back to when I'm asked this question, Melina. I often go back to when I did a first interview for the book Ripple of Change. I actually had kind of a nightmare. Like, what if somebody asked me, like, what does success look like? What does that mean? Because I'm the kind of guy that wants to joke. I joke all the time, boil the ocean, and I realize you cannot boil the ocean by yourself. You need many, many people. But who's to say if we all don't do a little bit, we can maybe raise the temperature too? That's obviously a
Hmm.
metaphor.
Yeah.
But I think about the quintuple aim, patient experience, so that the vast majority of individuals are not frustrated with healthcare delivery, quality care. I would love to see our life expectancy in this country not going down. I
Hmm.
would love to see us not spending nearly 20% of our GDP on healthcare. I want to see clinicians' suicide rates lowered. And frankly, I want to see that everybody has access. Those are
Yes.
some of the things that I would like to see. And obviously, those are big, big ticket items that are going to take a lot of effort. But, with enough people, we can.
Well, and you can see incremental movement in every one of those.
Yep.
So we could see, to your point, with small wins, short term wins lead to midterm, lead to bigger, larger, long term, right? So,
100%. 100%. So, like the work that you're doing in Virginia is so important.
yeah.
And I can't even hazard a guess to how many lives it saves from not only a clinician perspective, but those clinicians that are doing better, feeling better, not struggling, the better quality of care they deliver. I mean, that number, it's got to be a big number in terms of impact.
Well, you're kind to say. I will tell you, if we just save one person's life, we feel like we've won. But, it's caring for the human and then breaking apart the part of the system that doesn't work. We fight that fight every day. And we're working with other states to do that so that anything learned somewhere else can be applied here and vice versa quickly, because that is the difference, right? That will make the impact multiply faster.
Hmm.
And that is our goal. Well, we're coming to the end of our time, unfortunately, because I could spend all day with you. But if you could leave our listeners with one truth you wish you'd learned early in your career, what would it be?
I guess I'm speaking to clinicians when I say this, and I've spoken at some medical schools recently. Um, and I'm not saying this is applicable every circumstance, but learn how to say no.
Big
Learn,
one.
learn
Wow.
how to say no. Learn how to set boundaries. Learn how to care for yourself. Because if you are not doing well, there is no freaking way you're giving your best to your patients. No chance.
Yep. Yep. It's the oxygen mask on yourself first,
Yes, it
right?
is.
Which is
Absolutely.
such a odd thing, and we don't teach this really to our um, first responders. We don't teach it to people in medicine, and it's a really big reminder. That's so smart. You're such a joy. I need more time with you. Will you stop working on big projects so we can just hang out? That would be, no, actually, I don't want to say that. Everybody will get after me, but that's a selfish request. You're doing great work, and I'm so proud of everything you've accomplished and that I get to know you. Thank you, Todd.
Well, thanks, Melina, and thanks for your support and believing in what we're trying to accomplish. It means the world.